I think my mother did exactly the right thing. I think it's absolutely extraordinary that any right-minded thinking parent should believe that would have been an alternative.
Are you saying that that label stuck within your marriage?
I think people used it.
In a stunning twist no one saw coming, a royal secret has just come to light. Hidden for 27 years, sealed away behind the walls of a British palace, a letter. Not just any letter. A handwritten message from Princess Diana herself. Discovered during a quiet renovation, this forgotten envelope, yellow, delicate, untouched by time, was addressed to the last person anyone would expect. Princess Anne. Yes, that princess and the woman who once called Diana a silly girl. What Diana wrote inside will leave you speechless. Raw, honest, painful. This isn't tabloid gossip. This is the voice of a woman who felt trapped behind palace doors and finally spoke her truth. Stay with us, because what you're about to hear may change the way you remember Diana. Forever. The shocking discovery that stunned the palace. Let me take you back to that moment of discovery. It's 2024, and renovation crews are working in one of the lesser-used wings of the palace. These workers, they're used to finding odd bits of history, old coins, forgotten photographs. But nothing could have prepared them for this. The envelope bears Diana's distinctive handwriting, the same elegant script that once graced thank you notes to charities and personal letters to friends. But this letter, this was different. This was meant to stay hidden. You see, what makes this discovery so earth-shattering isn't just what Diana wrote. It's who she wrote it to. Princess and the Iron Princess, the no-nonsense royal who supposedly couldn't stand Diana. Why would Diana pour her heart out to someone who publicly showed her nothing but contempt? That's the first mystery we need to unravel together. Because to understand the explosive contents of this letter, we first need to understand the complex, painful relationship between these two very different women. Two princesses worlds apart. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine two women who couldn't be more different. One is Anne, tough as nails, raised from birth to be royal, stomping through Buckingham Palace in riding boots. The other is Diana, young, vulnerable, a kindergarten teacher who suddenly found herself thrust into the spotlight. When Diana first entered the royal family in 1981, she was just 20 years old. Can you imagine? 20 years old and suddenly expected to navigate the treacherous waters of royal protocol. Meanwhile, Anne was 31, already established, already secure in her position. But here's what the public never saw. That first painful encounter between them. Diana, still trying to find her place, ventured up to the nursery where Anne was with her young children. She gave Princess in the full courtesy, tried to start a friendly conversation. And what did she get in return? A look of pure contempt. The kind of look that cuts right through you. Diana left that room shattered. And from that moment on, their relationship was doomed. Or so everyone thought. The rivalry that divided a kingdom. Now, you might be thinking, surely things got better over time? Let me tell you something that might surprise you. They got worse. Much worse. And watched as this young woman, this outsider, became the most photographed woman in the world. Every magazine cover, every newspaper headline, Diana, Diana, Diana. And then, the hard-working princess who dedicated her life to royal duty, pushed to the sidelines. Can you feel the tension building? Because, and certainly felt it. Here she was, the queen's only daughter, working tirelessly for her charities. And suddenly she's being compared to someone she saw as playing to the cameras. But there's something else you need to understand. Something that makes Diana's letter even more shocking. And wasn't just irritated by Diana's popularity. She was genuinely concerned about what Diana represented for the monarchy. You see, and believe in the old ways. Duty first, personal feeling second. Never complain, never explain. And here was Diana, breaking every unwritten rule. Showing emotion, connecting with people in ways that royals simply didn't do. The Christmas of 1981 was particularly brutal. Picture the scene. The entire royal family gathered at Sandringham, and Diana, still trying to fit in, attempts to give a thoughtful gift. The response? Ice-cold rejection. The snub that shocked the royal family. But nothing, and I mean nothing, compared to what happened in 1984. This is where our story takes a dramatic turn, because this is when Diana did something that royal insiders still whisper about today. Prince Harry was about to be christened. A joyous occasion, right? Every member of the royal family should have been there. But Diana made a decision that sent shockwaves through the palace. She refused to invite and to be Harry's godmother. Think about that for a moment. In royal circles, being asked to be a godparent is one of the highest honors. And Diana didn't just skip over, and she made it crystal clear that and wasn't welcome at the christening at all. The official excuse? And was hosting a shooting party and couldn't leave her guests. But nobody believed that. Not for a second. This was war. Silent, elegant, but war nonetheless. Diana's secret torment revealed. Now, here's where our story gets even more intense. Because while the world saw Diana as this glamorous princess living a fairy tale life, behind closed doors, she was falling apart, and she documented everything in her private diary. Oh, what a treasure trove of pain that was. Diana poured out her heart. Let me share with you some of what she wrote, because these words will help you understand why that letter to Anne is so explosive. I thought we were supposed to be in this together, she wrote about Charles, but it feels like I'm fighting alone. Can you hear the desperation in those words? This wasn't a princess complaining about palace protocol. This was a woman drowning, reaching out for anyone who might throw her a lifeline. But it gets darker, much darker. The 3 words that exposed everything. There's an entry in Diana's diary that royal biographers have called the most revealing 3 words she ever wrote. Are you ready for this? Go to hell. Now, you might think, that's it? 3 words? But let me tell you when and why she wrote them, and you'll understand why they matter so much. It was 1989. Diana had just confronted Camilla at a party. Yes, that Camilla, the woman who would eventually become queen. Diana had walked into a room and found Charles and Camilla together, away from the other guests. And for the first time in her life, Diana fought back. She told Camilla she knew exactly what was going on, that she wasn't stupid, that she refused to be made a fool any longer. And when she got home that night, shaking with rage and humiliation, she wrote those 3 words in her diary. Go to hell. It was her declaration of war against everyone who had betrayed her. The darkness nobody talked about. But here's the part that will truly break your heart. Diana's struggles went far beyond anger. She was battling demons that the royal family refused to acknowledge. 5 times. That's how many times Diana tried to end her own life during her marriage. 5 times she cried out for help in the most desperate way possible. The first time, and this is almost too painful to share, she was 4 months pregnant with William. 4 months pregnant. And she threw herself down the stairs at Sandringham. Why? Because she wanted Charles to notice her pain. Care. To do something, anything, to show he saw her suffering. His response? He went riding. Left her there, dismissed it as attention-seeking. Can you imagine that loneliness? That desperation? She cut her wrists with a lemon peeler. Threw herself against a glass cabinet. Each time, the palace covered it up. Each time, she was told to pull herself together. Each time, she became more isolated. The letter that predicted death. Now, this is where our story takes its most chilling turn. Because Diana didn't just write in her diary. She wrote letters. Letters that would later haunt those who read them. 10 months before her death. Remember that timeline. Diana wrote a letter to her butler, Paul Burrell. In it, she made a shocking claim. She believed someone was planning to kill her, planning to tamper with her car brakes. She even named the person she suspected. That name has never been officially revealed. But Diana was convinced that her death would be made to look like an accident. When Burrell finally revealed this letter 6 years after Diana's death, it sent shockwaves around the world. Why had he kept it secret? What else did he know? But that letter to Burrell wasn't the only one Diana wrote in her final months. There was another letter. A letter to someone she had every reason to distrust. A letter to Princess Anne, the unexpected confidant. This is the part that nobody saw coming. After years of rivalry, years of cold shoulders and cruel comments, Diana did something extraordinary. She reached out to Anne. Why? Why would she confide in someone who had shown her nothing but contempt? Here's what royal insiders now believe. Diana was strategic. She was smart, and she knew something about and that others had missed, and might have been cold, but she was also incorruptible. She couldn't be bought, couldn't be silenced, couldn't be controlled by the palace machinery. If Diana wanted someone to know the real truth about what was happening behind palace walls, and was perhaps the only person who would keep that truth safe, what the letter really said. So what did Diana write in this explosive letter? According to those who've seen it, the contents are more devastating than anyone imagined. First, Diana laid out Charles's infidelity in brutal detail, not just the fact of it. Everyone knew about Camilla by then, but the systematic way the palace had covered it up, the lies they'd told, the way they'd made Diana look unstable to protect Charles's reputation. But here's the bombshell. Diana questioned whether Charles was fit to be king. Think about what that means. The mother of the future king, writing to the Princess Royal, suggesting that the heir to the throne wasn't worthy of the crown. This wasn't just personal anymore. This was about the very future of the monarchy. Diana wrote about how Charles's jealousy of her popularity had poisoned their relationship, how he couldn't bear that crowds cheered louder for her, how he'd made cruel comments about her appearance, triggering her bulimia. She exposed the reality of their sham marriage, how they'd been living separate lives for years while pretending to be united, how the palace forced her to keep up appearances, while Charles openly continued his affair with Camilla. The most shocking revelation, but the most shocking part of the letter, Diana revealed that she had evidence, documents, recordings, proof of everything she was claiming. She told him where to find this evidence if something happened to her. She gave specific instructions, like she was preparing for the worst. And then, this is the part that chills me to the bone, she wrote about her fears for her sons. Not just their emotional well-being, but their future. She worried about the kind of men they would become, raised in this toxic environment of lies and betrayal. She begged, and yes, begged, to watch over William and Harry if anything happened to her. The woman who had once called her a silly girl was now the person Diana trusted with her most precious legacy. And hidden response. Now, you're probably wondering, what did it do with this letter? This is where our story takes another unexpected turn. And didn't dismiss it. She didn't throw it away. She hid it. For 27 years, Princess Anne kept Diana's secret. Through the investigation into Diana's death, through the conspiracy theories, through the inquests and the questions, she never revealed the letter's existence. Why? What made the Iron Princess protect a woman she supposedly despised? Here's what palace insiders now believe. That letter changed everything for Anne. For the first time, she saw Diana not as a media-hungry outsider, but as a woman fighting for survival in an impossible situation, a mother trying to protect her children, a fellow princess betrayed by the very institution they both served. And perhaps, just perhaps, and recognized something of herself in Diana's words, because Anne too had suffered in her first marriage. She too had been forced to maintain appearances while her personal life crumbled. The fatal night in Paris. We all know what happened next. August 31st, 1997. The Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris. The crash that silenced the people's princess forever. But now, with this letter in mind, that night takes on new significance. Diana's fears, documented months before, suddenly seemed less like paranoia and more like prophecy. The official verdict was driver error. Henri Paul, the chauffeur, was drunk, driving too fast. Case closed. But Diana's letter to Anne raises questions that won't go away. If Diana knew she was in danger, who else knew? If she had evidence of palace secrets, what happened to it? And most chillingly, was her death really an accident? The investigation, that went nowhere. When Paul Burrell revealed Diana's letter predicting her death, Scotland Yard opened a new investigation. They even requested to interview Prince Charles. But nothing came of it. The case was closed again. But here's what they didn't know. They didn't know about the letter to Anne. The letter that contained not just fears and accusations, but specific details, names, dates, evidence. Would things have been different if Anne had revealed the letter then? We'll never know, because Anne kept her silence. Why now? The timing of truth. So, why has this letter surfaced now, after all these years? The palace claims it was found during renovation. But royal watchers have another theory. Princess is now in her 70s. She's seen the monarchy weather scandal after scandal. She's watched as Harry and Meghan have made their own explosive claims about royal life. And perhaps she decided it was time for the truth to come out. Or maybe she never meant for it to be found at all. Maybe this really was an accident of renovation, a secret that was meant to die with her. Either way, the letter's discovery has reopened wounds that never truly healed. The son she worried about. Remember how Diana worried about William and Harry in her letter? Look at them now. William, preparing to be king, seemingly stable but carrying the weight of his mother's legacy. And Harry, living in exile in California, at war with the very institution his mother died fighting against. Did Diana see this coming? Did she know that her younger son would one day walk away from it all? In her letter to Anne, she expressed particular concern about Harry. She called him fragile. She worried that without her protection, the palace would crush his spirit. And when Diana died, who stepped up? Princess Anne. Royal sources confirmed that and took special care of Harry in those dark days after the funeral. She took him riding in the Scottish Highlands. She gave him the space to grieve away from the cameras. The woman who had once snubbed his mother became his protector because she had made a promise hidden in a letter that nobody else knew existed. The palace's deafening silence. Since the letter's discovery, Buckingham Palace has maintained complete silence. No confirmation, no denial, just silence. But actions speak louder than words. Security around renovation work has been dramatically increased. Documents are being moved from storage. And Princess Anne? She's canceled several public appearances. Royal watchers say they've never seen the palace this rattled, not even during the Harry and Meghan crisis. Because this isn't just about personal grievances. This is about Diana's own words, hidden for decades, calling into question the very legitimacy of the future king. The evidence that vanished. Remember how Diana told and about evidence she'd hidden? Here's where our story gets even murkier. After Diana's death, her apartments were immediately sealed. When they were finally opened, many of her personal papers were missing. Paul Burrell was later accused of stealing Diana's possessions, but he was acquitted when the Queen suddenly remembered that he had Diana's permission to take certain items. The trial collapsed, and with it, any chance of discovering what had really happened to Diana's documents. But what if those documents weren't stolen? What if they were removed on orders from the highest level? And what if Princess knows exactly what happened to them? The reconciliation nobody expected. Here's something beautiful that emerged from this shocking discovery. In her letter, Diana thanked Anne. Despite everything, the snubs, the cruelty, the rivalry, Diana thanked her. For what? We don't know the full details. But palace insiders suggest that in Diana's final year, and had begun to soften toward her. Small gestures, a kind word here and there, perhaps even warnings about palace plots. Diana wrote that she finally understood Anne's coldness. It wasn't personal. It was survival, and had learned to build walls to protect herself in the royal family. And she tried to teach Diana the same lesson, but Diana had been too young, too hopeful to understand. You were right about so many things, Diana allegedly wrote. I just wish I'd listened sooner. The ultimate betrayal. But the most heartbreaking part of the letter? Diana's description of her final meeting with the Queen. She had gone to her mother-in-law one last time, seeking help, seeking protection. The Queen's response? You must learn to compromise. Compromise? While her son was flaunting his mistress. While the palace was spreading rumors about Diana's mental health. While her every move was monitored and controlled. Diana wrote that in that moment, she knew she was truly alone. Even the Queen, who had the power to intervene, had chosen the institution over her. The warning that haunts history. In the final paragraph of her letter, Diana issued a warning, not just about her own safety, but about the future of the monarchy itself. "The people won't forgive this," she wrote. "They see through the facade now. And when I'm gone, because I know I won't be here much longer, they'll demand answers. The truth always comes out eventually." She was right, wasn't she? Look at the monarchy now. The scandals, the declining popularity, the constant questions about relevance and value. Diana saw it coming. She knew that the palace's treatment of her would eventually corrode public trust, and she wanted, in the most dutiful of all royals, to understand what was at stake, the promise kept in secret. So, what didn't do after reading this letter? We know she hid it. But that's not all she did. Watch the timeline carefully. After Diana's death, Anne's public persona began to shift. She became more accessible. She started speaking more openly to the media. She showed a warmth that had been hidden for decades. And most tellingly, she became fiercely protective of William and Harry. Not in an obvious way. That wasn't Anne's style. But in small, significant actions, supporting their charities, speaking proudly of their achievements, and most importantly, never, not once, speaking ill of their mother. The woman who had once called Diana a silly girl became the guardian of her legacy, because of a letter, because of a promise, because sometimes it takes death to make us see the truth about life, the questions that demand answers. So what does this leave us? With more questions than answers. Why did Diana choose Anne as her confessor? What other secrets did she share that we still don't know about? And most importantly, if Diana was right about the threat to her life, who was responsible? The palace wants this story to disappear. They want us to forget about the letter, to move on, to focus on the future rather than the past. But Diana was right about one thing. The truth always comes out eventually. The legacy that lives on. 27 years after her death, Diana's words have returned to haunt those who betrayed her. Her letter to Anne isn't just a historical curiosity. It's a testament to a woman who refused to be silenced, even when she knew the cost. Think about the courage it took to write that letter, to reach out to someone who had rejected her, to document the truth when everyone around her was living a lie, to plan for a future she suspected she wouldn't see. That's the Diana we should remember. Not just a fashion icon or the people's princess, but a woman who fought for truth until her very last breath. Your part in this story. Now I have a question for you. After everything you've learned today, what do you think? Was Diana's death really an accident? Should and have revealed the letter sooner? And what other secrets might still be hiding in palace walls? Because the story isn't over. Not by a long shot. The discovery of this letter has opened a door that can't be closed. More revelations are coming. More truth is emerging. And perhaps that's Diana's final victory. She knew she couldn't win against the palace while she was alive. But she also knew that truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep it's buried. 27 years. That's how long it took for this letter to find the light. But it found it, just as Diana knew it would. So the next time you see a photo of the royal family, all smiles and waves, remember what lies beneath. Remember the woman who tried to tell us the truth. Remember the letter that was hidden for nearly 3 decades. And remember that in the end, Diana was right. The people won't forgive. The truth always comes out. And somewhere, perhaps, Diana is finally at peace, knowing that her story, her real story, has finally been told. What happens next? That's for history to decide. But one thing is certain. The monarchy will never be the same. Because Diana's words, hidden for so long, have finally found their voice. And that voice is asking questions that demand answers. Questions about power, about truth, about the price of silence. Questions that began with a letter from one princess to another. A letter that was meant to stay hidden forever. A letter that changes everything. The revolution Diana started isn't over. In fact, it may have just begun.